Pro Wheel here. Today we review an IPA and discuss Trump's VP pick. Hello and welcome to Beer and Conversation with Pigweed and Crowhill. Good evening, Pigweed.
Good evening, Crowhill.
What's on your mind today?
Shooting puppies in the face.
Ooh, that's not a very nice thing.
It's not a nice thing.
Not a nice
and
thing
it's
to
not
do.
a nice thing. It's just as a matter of principle.
Yeah.
And I think if you're trying to get the public behind you for a political career,
Kind of thing you'd avoid.
I mean, if that happened in your past,
It's kind of the opposite of kissing babies, right?
you would kind of want to bury that and not put it in your memoir that is released at a critical time in your political career.
You would think, yeah.
So
People,
People
like
respond
dogs.
to that.
People like dogs. And, I mean, I've never owned a dog. I'm not particularly a dog person, but
I'm not
like,
either.
I like dogs. You know.
Wouldn't it cheat one in the face?
I see those pictures of
pictures.
the poor dog starving, and you go, "Oh, poor dog," you know. No, I don't.
So I just say it's a bad political move. I don't know.
Yeah.
Am I crazy?
I think you're probably right on that. But before we get into that too much, we have to Wicked Weed Brewing.
All right.
What are these wicked weeds on the cover? They just look like spiders, not weeds.
Right.
What is that? Anyway,
do you know where they are?
I don't even know what that.
Do you have a little
There's
an
weird
indicator
looking
down
weed.
the side?
Perni Haze. This hazy hop delivery vehicle is to be enjoyed fresh and often. Citra and Simcoe. So it's a hazy IPA, which means you get this cloudiness here, and it's going to have a little bit of kind of a chewy flavor to it, probably. And Citra and Simcoe, when I opened the can, I could smell the hops
Right from there.
from a foot away.
And we are at 6.9%.
Okay.
A little, nice and heavy on the ABV. Asheville, North Carolina, and Portsmouth, New Hampshire. There have two facilities.
Yeah, a lot of hop aroma, and you get the hop bitterness right at the first sip. It's really strong there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's got I would call that tropical.
Yeah, kind of tropical aroma. But do you get that strong hop flavor and bitterness right at the front?
Yeah, sometimes the payoff is after you swallow, but this
It's
is
right there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting.
All right.
It's very hoppy. If you like hops, here you go.
Yeah,
this is your thing.
This was a 12-pack of the hop spectrum. So I guess
All right. So it's on the spectrum.
it's on the spectrum.
All right. So Trump's VP pick. It's an interesting question because it's not just a regular VP pick.
No, it isn't. See, oftentimes, or in general, you want to balance the ticket. Like, where is your weak point? I would think that Trump, being a brash New York guy, so he gets a very, stable, middle of the country Indiana guy
Or
to go with him.
maybe somebody from the South. I don't know. But he doesn't.
No. I mean historically. So
Yeah.
Pence.
Right.
Or when George Bush.
Or take Barack Obama. He wanted to balance himself out, so he gets this guy who's been in Congress forever.
And he was he was particularly young.
Yeah.
So let me get a senior.
An old guy from the East Coast.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Or flop that around. You might get a young VP if you're old.
Right.
Right. So you're looking for that balance. That's generally how it works. Regionally, like, he's a northeastern guy. Maybe I need a Texas guy to balance out this ticket. This one's a little different.
It is different because, for one thing, Trump can only be president if he wins for 4 years.
Exactly.
So he's got to, if he's thinking strategically, and I hope he is, if he's thinking strategically, he has to be thinking about not only who can be a good VP for him to get him elected and be effective, but also that person is probably going to be the likely nominee for the next
they will be the front
time
runner
around
for sure,
and could potentially serve 8 years as president after Trump. So he really should be thinking about somebody who can kind of get their bona fides for 4 years and then be the best prospect for the next election.
Now, I'm not sure he's thinking about that,
okay.
but if he calls us for advice, we are going to certainly include that. So we'll look at this list and we'll look at both of those things. We'll look at balance,
right,
and then we'll look at, can you see this person as an 8-year president
right,
at the end of this,
right,
this 4 years. So where do you want to start? So I've got two little snapshots here. And
okay.
who do you want as Trump's VP? One's got some pictures in the other. There's some overlap, and there's also some people missing.
Right.
So Christi Noem.
Right.
I think
she's the one who killed the dog.
he could scratch her.
Well, she.
Oh, I kind of,
like her.
I did like her. I thought that she was the governor of South Dakota, and she was not a lockdown state.
Right.
And
supposedly she put that thing in her memoir to show that she had to make tough choices.
Yeah.
Okay. So don't you have any other tough choices you've made? I mean, come on.
And I understand living on the farm, and if you want to show that you can shoot a gun, I mean, you don't have you never shot a wolf a fox that was in the hen house or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're okay with you killing animals.
Although
the
other side of that is, they made fun of Mitt Romney because he put a dog on the roof of the car. The dog probably loved it, You ever seen a dog sticking his head out the window when you're driving down the road? The dog on the roof of the car was having the time of his life. Anyway, so they're going to find a reason to go after a conservative, especially a conservative woman, right. No matter what. But anyway, yeah, it was probably a bad move.
Do you want to go through why don't you just read through them, and then we'll come out and pick.
Well, we got two selections here. You've got some images on the side, and you've got this list over here. Yeah. So from the images, we've got Elise Stephanik, Christi Noem,
Tulsi
Gabbard, Abbott, Vivek. We've got that's Sarah Huckabee, Kari Lake,
MTG,
and then Tucker Carlson,
right.
and then good old Ron DeSantis. Now over here, in addition to that, we've got Tim Scott, J.D. Vance, and none of the above.
Nikki Haley.
Nikki Haley. Okay, right. Yeah.
So let's just say we've got 12-15 here. Vivek is. I got a slot for Vivek. I don't have a specific slot, but I got he needs a place.
He does need to have a place.
I'm not putting him as VP though.
No, I think I was really in favor of Vivek early on, right. But his behavior in the debates showed me that he's really not ready for that kind of an office. He needs to mature a little bit more. And I mean, that's a funny thing to say about a guy who's, he's in his late 30s or something, right? But I think he does need to mature a bit before he's ready for the VP level. So some sort of an administration position, right. that would be good for him. Kari Lake, there was a time when I liked her, but she seems to have gone a little too off the edge to me.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait for her to win a slot in Arizona.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great place for her.
Yeah. Yeah, Tim Scott, he's okay. It doesn't really thrill me. There's some things to be said for him. He's a black guy, so that would help. He's from the South, that would help. And he's relatively stable, but he's not exciting.
He's not exciting, but I'm gonna move him towards the top of the list.
Okay.
Greg Abbott, now, does he want this job? Does Greg Abbott or Ron DeSantis, who are the two, you got your Florida guy, your Texas guy, successful red state guys who are making their states redder and better, and places that New Yorkers and Californians are moving to, hopefully not ruining them. They want to keep rocking and rolling in their own states, or do they want the national stage?
I don't know, but I don't trust Greg Abbott. I think he was way late to a lot of the issues that, now he's getting better about the border and all that kind of stuff, but he was way late to it. And I remember things early on, many years ago, I heard him say things that made me have some serious question about him. So I'm not real big on Greg Abbott.
Now, and can Ron DeSantis and Trump heal their wounds? Trump is so, I don't know, maybe insincere might be the word, or he's so good.
He's volatile.
But I imagine him also trying to rip somebody's head off and then going, "Hey, I didn't mean anything by that. Come on, I'm sure we can work together."
Yeah.
No, really?
I entirely think he's that way because I've worked for people who are like that. They'll call you up and chew you out. 5 minutes later, they'll call you up and give you a raise. You know? It's just like that.
Yeah.
There are people like that, and that's just the way it is. So
Yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is, any bad blood is probably more on DeSantis' side than Trump. Trump probably is like, all right, he's out of the race now. Great guy. Great guy. Love that state.
yeah, no, he's super. Yes. So I think that's a possibility. I think they could. Remember, it was George Bush who referred to Reagan's economic policies as voodoo economics, and then he became Reagan's running mate. So I think it is possible to bury the hatchet.
And the idea, and if we're talking about, can I see a guy being president for 8 years? That aspect of it, yes, 100%.
You know, it's funny. One person who isn't on this list at all.
No.
Some guy who used to be VP.
What?
Trump's VP from last
Oh,
time.
no, oh, right.
Yeah, they are
Yes.
outs. They're done.
Yeah. There's no healing that one.
No, they're done. So I think DeSantis and Trump could make up, and I would love to see DeSantis in there because out of all these people, he would be the one I would most want to be president.
Right.
Yeah.
So I do like Governor Sarah Huckabee.
Yeah. Although I like her too. But
I think she would work well with Trump. If I'm not factoring in part two,
well, so the thing I'm not thrilled about with her is she just doesn't. You know, look at the other women on here. Tulsi Gabbard's good looking. Christi Noem is good looking. Kari Lake is good looking. Sarah Huckabee Sanders isn't as good looking as they are. You know, and that plays when you're talking about. I know, of course, but that's just the way it is. So,
it is.
So I like her, but you know, I'm not sure that she would be the greatest candidate. To tell you the truth, that's harsh, and I don't like saying it.
And Nikki Haley, who's not.
Nikki Haley, she's out. She's no way she's out, and she's burned her bridges with such a large portion of the Republican Party that I don't think she's going to do anything.
Right. Well, let's just finish off the ladies here.
Yeah.
Tulsi Gabbard, lifelong Democrat.
Yeah, I know that would be hard. I like Tulsi Gabbard. I like her a lot, but the fact that she was a Democrat for so long, that would be really hard to support her.
And Stephanik.
I don't know enough about her
to
say much about her.
I like what I hear. She seems smart. She's committed, conservative. She's from New York, not New York City, but New York. Mm-hmm. But I'm not seeing it.
And then MTG, no way. I don't.
No.
I can't see her.
Yeah.
I like that she's out there. She's a bomb thrower.
I do.
I like bomb throwers.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
I don't like a lot of things she says. I like some of the things she says. I love, and some of the things she says is like, "Come on, you're crazy."
But she.
But that's her role.
She goes after weak-kneed Republicans.
Yeah.
And says, "What are you even in this party for if you're not going to stand up for this?"
Yeah.
Right. I mean, she's
she's
firebrand.
She's a firebrand. She's a bomb thrower, and I like that. Newt Gingrich started off as a backbench bomb thrower. So okay, fine, but no way for VP. Tucker Carlson, what the heck is speaking of the ladies?
Whose list is
what the heck is he doing on there? Why would anybody consider Tucker Carlson as presidential material? He's an interesting guy. I like listening to him. He has recently, talking about going off the deep end, he has recently started being pretty wacky in some of the things
I mean, I wouldn't even in the sort of Vivek Ramaswamy way. I don't even see a place for him in the administration.
Except maybe as press secretary. Could you imagine that?
Okay, yeah. Actually, let me think about it. Wow. Yeah. I mean,
the only who would be better, the only person who would be better than Tucker Carlson as press secretary would be Ann Coulter.
That is. She has my vote too.
She would be good. Having her as press secretary. That would make I would die happy if.
Oh gosh!
If she was press secretary, that would just be wonderful.
That's good. And JD Vance, very young.
Yeah.
I think he's great. I just want to.
He doesn't bring anything.
I want to see him just rocking and rolling in Ohio.
Yeah.
And
I don't think he brings anything to the ticket. So, out of all the people we've talked about, who actually brings something to the ticket? Now, bringing a woman on the ticket, maybe that would help. Maybe I'm not sure.
Is it? Is it this collection of women, or have I been too much Pearl Davis? The idea of is it an 8 years of one of these women, or can I not quite stomach the idea of 8 years of a woman president?
You know, I could resurrect Margaret Thatcher and make her an American. I could take her 8 years of her
All day.
Yeah. So it's not, or who was the ambassador to the UN?
No, that was Nikki Haley.
No. Oh, before that.
Madeleine Albright.
Under Reagan, ambassador to the UN. She was great. I could take her. I can't remember her name, but she was fantastic. Her name. I hope her name will occur to me sooner or later. So I'm not against a female president per se, but I don't see any of these.
Or am I? So
who are we left with?
We're left with the two governors and Tim Scott.
Yeah. So Ron DeSantis is my first choice. Mm-hmm. And I think from this list, I think it would have to be Tim Scott would be my second choice. Mm-hmm. Because I'm not thrilled with... J.D. Vance doesn't really bring anything. Yeah. And I don't really trust Texas dude.
Yeah. All right, well, you heard it here. And
Ron DeSantis, that's who I'm
Trump, if you're listening,
Yeah. Give us a call later on. We can chat about
it. Yes.
All right, so is there anything else about the whole election VP thing?
Not really, but there is something else that's been on my mind.
Okay, what's that?
For 3.5 years.
Okay, you have a burden you need to release.
Yes.
Uh-oh. Oh, no. Ice Cream Joe.
Okay. Have you ever heard me say on this show or even in private that election was stolen? No.
I've not heard you say that.
But I need to talk about some math here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So, Obama got fewer votes his second time that he ran and still won.
Right.
You could say, well, look, it's buyer's remorse. People thought they were getting something, and after 4 years of Trump, you had a bunch of Trump voters said, you know what? No, thank you.
Except he got more votes.
He got more votes. Yes. So there was zero buyer's remorse.
Right.
So, got the most votes in all of history until Ice Cream Joe. Mm-hmm. Where did these people come from?
Didn't campaign at all.
Yes. So either you had people who were completely disinterested in Trump,
or you had so many people who just plain hated and feared Trump that they came out of the woodwork to vote for Biden because they hated Trump.
Yeah, but if they hated and feared him, they would have come out for the woodwork the first time.
Well, maybe. What
did they actually see except for prosperity and peace?
But what they saw was 4 years of relentless assault on Trump, making him seem like Hitler. The media was hard enough on him before the election, but they didn't really take him all that seriously. They didn't think he really had a shot against Hillary Clinton, right? But once he was actually in office, they were like, holy crap, we really have to go after this guy. Right. And they went after him, both guns blazing.
Yes, but sometimes, so millions of CNN and The View watchers.
Are there millions of
them? Who were not all that politically interested in the 4 years earlier. Oh, what is it? 2016.
Yeah. Suddenly came out of...
Suddenly we're like, now that I'm watching The View, and now that I see this Morning Joe telling me how he's Hitler,
right.
Come on, by the tens of millions, we all need to get out and vote against the orange dictator, or there's so many people inspired by the Biden campaign.
Yeah, I think you can count them on one hand.
He didn't come out of the basement. But did you see any of his rallies? There was there were more reporters.
Yeah, I know. His rallies were so
there was zero amount of the excitement.
No excitement
Factor.
No excitement
to bring out millions of people.
And Biden was like a 3-time loser. He tried running for president several times before, and got kicked out because he was a plagiarist and because he's not very interesting. And so it is. it is weird. Now the only
So
way to
So the question is, where did these people come from? Go ahead.
okay. So the only, if you're going to try to say why did Joe Biden win, the only rational response is that people hated Trump so much that people, who never voted before came out and voted just because they hated Trump so much. That's the only way to justify it.
But the thing is, I get that if they came out in 2016 because of the fear of the damage that he would do. And then after 4 years, what is the damage that you would point to? They're going, I can't believe, we can't suffer through any more of this peace and prosperity.
Unless they believed the Russia conspiracy stuff, there were a lot of things the media went after him for.
Yeah. I just don't know that many people be paying attention to those people.
Yeah.
I don't think you have tens of millions of people. So let me so I'm not saying.
Now we do have to also account for the fact that some other strange things were going on in 2020.
So you're right. It was uniquely different in a variety of ways, and because of COVID. You all may remember COVID.
Right.
And it ushered in
a completely different system. We had never allowed mail-in voting to that extent. We had never allowed. It was not just mail-in. There was some other. They allowed. It was ballot harvesting stuff.
Yes, ballot harvesting.
But there were a lot of things that they changed the rules. A lot of states changed the rules about when timelines would.
Yes, in states where the state constitution said only the state legislature can change voting rules.
And then the judge did.
Or the Secretary of State or whoever is in charge of that just went on their own and changed it. And they were never, nobody pushed back. There was no consequences. There was no state Supreme Court or anything of that nature. So we had this unique situation.
Mm-hmm.
And
unique in many ways.
And can I give you my mail-in internationally, how people feel about the mail-in voting?
You mean people like from France who are trying to vote in the United States? That kind of international mailing?
No.
What kind of mailing are you talking about?
I'm talking about mail-in voting laws in other countries. So France banned mail-in voting in 1975 due to fraud.
Right.
Mexico banned it in 1992 due to fraud.
Mm-hmm.
Belgium banned it in 2018 due to fraud. Sweden, Italy, Ukraine, Russia, Japan, no Middle Eastern country, no Latin American countries permit mail-in voting because it's so open to the F word.
Right.
I'm not saying it was stolen. I'm just saying there are reasons.
So you have to weigh two different things. You have to weigh. Let's steel man the case for it was a perfectly legitimate.
Steel?
Steel man.
Oh, right.
Steel man the case. Everything was perfectly legitimate and above the board. Okay. Despite the fact that we had new rules for mail-in voting, despite the fact that we extended the time for voting, despite all the various weird things that were done because of COVID, we could say, all right, people so hated and feared Trump that yes, tens of millions of people came out of the woodwork, got out of their pajamas, and went out and voted. Yeah, that's one case.
So right, so if you're on CNN, you're saying how did Biden win? That's what he would say. Right?
Certainly it was not charisma. Certainly, it was not his message. There was nothing.
Right, the enthusiasm level of the rallies and etc.
Zero
the
enthusiasm.
Message was so great.
Zero enthusiasm. The guy is adult, and everybody knows it. He's too old, and everybody knows it. I mean, he was too old then, and he's way too old now. So, I mean, there's almost nothing compelling about Joe Biden. The only reason that Biden could have won, if we steel man that case, is that people hated and feared Trump so much that they came out against him.
Yeah, all I'm saying is, yes, plenty. All of the people who hated Trump in 2020 already hated him in 2016. The idea that there was 20 million new haters, because if you're just walking around your life looking around, actually he picked up in all the demographics. Mm-hmm. He won more in the black community. He won more in the Latino community. So the only people who, like I said before, would be the media telling you how awful he is, because if you're not somebody watching CNN and The View, you're not experiencing how awful the man is. You're only being told. And you know what? Only bozos like us spend as much time watching the news and the media.
I have spoken to some people at the gym who would say crazy things about Trump. You know, they would believe the Morning Joe nonsense about Trump. So,
but if they're watching Morning Joe, they already were.
They were already voting Democrat.
All right, so this is called. I'm not saying the election was stolen, but, and we have a GOP candidate from Wisconsin who says, we had nursing homes where you had 100% voting.
Wow.
You have 80. You have people who aren't going to live for 6 months.
Yeah.
Who have historically super low. Who's voting from the nursing home?
I've been in nursing homes, and 80% of the people don't even know what voting means.
Oh, you know, I'm just all right. So here I got some more just sayings. I'm not saying.
Right.
I'm just saying.
Okay.
Here we have. Let's go through some of our swing states. Here, how about Wisconsin? Mm-hmm. Historically, 65% voting. That's just probably about right.
65% of the eligible population.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So you had 3.3 million voters. 92% voted.
92% voted this time.
Yes. Here we go in Michigan. Mm-hmm. 68%
is normal.
Is right.
Okay.
No. Throughout the state was 68.
Okay.
Detroit was over 90.
Okay.
And you have the same thing here. Here's Pennsylvania. Again, overall throughout the state, 74. Philadelphia, another 90.
So what we're supposed to believe is that by opening things up with mailing in voting and other kinds of things, they've allowed more people to express their right to vote and get out there. So more people, that what's happened actually is we've been suppressing
people who are the closest to their vote poll. You know, right? If it was
like
out
2
in the
blocks
country,
away. Yeah.
Everybody lives 2 blocks away from the voting center.
Yeah. So what we're supposed to believe is that for decades and decades, we've been suppressing all these people from voting, and only by allowing mail-in voting and late voting and early voting and all this other kind of stuff, now all of a sudden all these people have been allowed to vote.
And all of the people who didn't know how to vote or couldn't walk down the street to vote or forgot what day it was to vote, are all Democrats.
Yes.
So at 3 a.m., when Trump is leading in all of the swing states...
I went to bed that night very confident that Trump was going to win.
I took off the next day because I wanted to stay up late, and I'm sitting there, it's midnight, and the West Coast in Nevada has decided... It's 10 o'clock in Nevada. The polls have been closed for 2 hours.
Right.
In late... How about if we just shut this down and tomorrow morning we'll get right back at it?
Right.
In Argentina, where they had no mail-in voting, 1 day voting.
Right.
The thing was done by that night before anybody went to bed.
Right.
And here we had. What did it take? Did it take a full week?
It took a long time for them to count all the votes, and that's the other thing about it that's very disturbing is all these. We see these videos of they're over there counting the votes. Nobody's supervising them.
You see the one in Philadelphia where they're putting up paper?
Yeah.
To prevent people from looking through the window and watching them count votes.
Right. Yeah. So there were a lot of irregularities. There were a lot of strange things going on.
In Wisconsin, this was just this week. A woman was charged with printing out 64,000 mail-in votes from an office in the city hall. And guess what happened? She got fired. So you could possibly have swung an entire state and an election and stuck us with a fake president.
Yeah.
And the penalty is you got fired?
Yeah.
I mean,
she probably immediately got hired by the local DNC. But the other side of this whole question is that all these allegations of election fraud have allegedly gone through the courts and gone through various reviews, and they've all said no. There's no evidence here. There's nothing going on. We can't find any evidence of actual cheating. So a lot of these things have been litigated.
Levels of cheating that would have swung the state.
Yes, exactly.
So it's like, yes, you're right. There were 10,000 fake votes over here, but he lost by 30,000. So we're not really going to pursue this any further.
So let's do a quick pro-con. Like what are the things on the side of it was legitimate? Okay, one thing on the side of it was legitimate is that it's been investigated by a bunch of courts.
Yeah.
And they haven't found anything. There's been no smoking gun. They can't prove anything that was. So that's one thing. Another thing on the side of it being legitimate is that Trump is a uniquely polarizing figure.
True.
So the idea that a bunch of people would hate him is not unreasonable.
No.
Okay. So can you think of anything else on the pro side?
That the for whatever reason, Democrat voters were more inclined to vote by mail.
Okay, sure. So there's a possibility
that the numbers would break harder for
exactly that the changes that allowing mail-in voting and all that kind of stuff for some reason
if it's completely legit.
Yeah, that somehow it uniquely benefited Democrats to do that. That's another possibility. Okay, so that's on the pro side. Now on the side of it was rigged or something, we have the fact.
Improbable.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. A lot of the numbers are just plain improbable. That's certainly true. Another side of it is there were clearly shenanigans going on, like in Pennsylvania, where, as you said, the Secretary of State changed something rather than the legislature. There were clearly
allowing votes that came in after.
Yeah. There were irregularities for certain. Ballot harvesting was a big thing this time, which hadn't been going on before. We have all this stuff about not all the vote counting was out in the open,
transparent.
Yeah.
You
didn't have Republicans watching the Democrats and vice versa. So there are a lot of reasons to be suspicious about it, but there really isn't any clear smoking gun.
And just the large scale numbers. So you get a president, like we said, Obama got fewer votes but still won. You're going. There was a lot of buyer's remorse. There were a lot of people who voted for Obama once and didn't vote him for a second time.
Yeah.
There was zero. There was none of that. There's no body of people. There must be somebody. You could find somebody, but there's no group of people who turned on
Trump.
And in fact, he picked up in a lot of areas you wouldn't expect. And then lo and behold, Ice Cream Joe gets this.
The most uninspiring political candidate we've seen in decades.
Yes. Just people,
I mean,
where do these votes come from?
Michael Dukakis was more inspiring than this idiot. So then there's one other thing to consider, which is why is it that we continue to have this problem about people showing ID before they can vote? This is one of these things. I don't even understand why it's a discussion. Like, I have to show an ID to buy a beer. Why shouldn't I have to show an ID to vote?
Get on a plane.
Anything that I do.
Rent a movie.
Right. I know.
People don't rent movies anymore. But
right. Yeah. There's so many things where you have to show an ID. And did you know there was this very interesting study a little while ago about the way that liberals and conservatives speak to black people? And what they did was they measured the way you a white liberal would speak to a black person, or the way a white conservative would speak to a black person.
Right.
And what they found was that the liberals would
condescend.
that they would change their vocabulary. They would speak down to them.
Right.
They would talk to them more like they were speaking to a child.
Who was it? Oh, how about Hochul's? A lot of black people don't know how to use computers.
Yeah, exactly. And when you ask people what's wrong with having to show an ID? Oh, you ask a bunch of young liberals, what's wrong with voter ID? Oh, black people, they just don't know how to get ID. They right? Like they don't
Right.
they don't really know. It's hard.
the most
It's too
low
hard for them.
expectation kind of.
Yeah, it's insulting when
Yeah.
when you listen to what they're saying, and then you have the man on the street. They go down into Harlem or something, and they say, "Hey, where's the DMV?" Oh, it's about 3 blocks that
Yeah,
way.
136th Street.
Right.
I mean, who doesn't have?
It is so condescending. It is so ridiculous to assume that poor people or black people or anybody else doesn't know how to get an ID. They have to get an ID for everything else in their life.
And you know who has voter ID requirements?
Everybody in the world except us?
Yeah, just about. I mean, everything from the UK to Slovakia, Slovenia, Romania, Zimbabwe, Botswana.
Why wouldn't you? This is one of these things. There are so many things in the modern political discourse.
Between the mail-in voting, the extended voting, and the voter ID, you're just telling us we plan to cheat.
Yeah.
Is the only
Yes.
way I say it.
Yes.
If you really care about fair elections, what? Because some urine-stained homeless man might not get to vote.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
So there's one other thing I need to add to the column in terms of was it legit, was it not legit, which is the whole question of if there was a conspiracy to elect Joe Biden, do we see any evidence of that kind of conspiracy? Well, why don't we look at all the phony lawsuits that are being brought against Trump right now? Why don't we look at the way the FBI, it's just been recently revealed that the FBI staged a lot of stuff with regard to the classified documents.
Yeah, and that was the strongest of the cases.
Yeah.
That one's dead.
That one's dead.
That one's dead.
And
Yes, we
the
have-
Fonnie Willis or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
I mean, so
She's done.
you look at all this stuff and you think, is it reasonable to believe that the deep state, that the apparatus of government was aligned, at least to some degree, against Trump? It's very, very easy to believe that.
Yeah, I mean, right from the FBI is spying on my campaign,
Which turned out to be
and
true.
you're right, and you're like, there's kooky old Trump.
Right.
No,
and it just turned out to be true.
Flat out true.
Yeah. So there's a lot of reason to believe that people bent the rules and, just didn't follow correct procedure, tilted things in Biden's favor.
So
There's a lot of reason.
Tons of shenanigans. And then I love the response. Like, it's just like, instead of saying Joe Biden, sure, he's getting old, but boy, he makes up for it in experience or that. They tell us, no, he is the smartest, sharpest president.
I know.
Same thing with the election. Like, I realize this is an unprecedented situation.
Straightforward gaslighting.
And then
Yeah.
they're like, no. This was the most secure election that's ever been on the planet.
I know.
It's like,
I know. It's just straightforward gaslighting, and we get it constantly from Karine Jean-Pierre, whatever her name is. She will just straightforwardly say something that everybody knows is ridiculous, but she'll just say it.
inflation is way down, crime is way down.
This
Everybody
president
is much
busier
happier
than every president
he
ever.
does more by 6 a.m. than most people
Right.
do.
And we all know
today.
that he's taking naps for most of the time. I mean, come on. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So,
All right. So
I'm not saying the election was stolen. I'm just saying.
well, there's certainly a lot of reasons to be skeptical and cynical about it. On the other hand,
Anyway.
allegedly it's been litigated and no thing was found.
why I'm
So
not
that's
saying.
it. It's just right.
just saying.
Yeah, you got it. Got to leave it there.
Can I do one quick Bukele man of the week?
Sure, Bukele. That's our buddy down in El
Down
Salvador.
in El Salvador. Did you see this? I thought, I wasn't sure if I was watching Godfather 1 or Bukele.
Mm-hmm.
He brings everybody in I've gathered these together today to tell you if something happens to my son, I'm going to blame someone in this room.
Okay.
So everybody in the executive branch, except for the Attorney General, is in the room.
All right.
And he talks about his legacy.
Okay.
And he refers to a previous Duarte. He said, that guy, he says, the knock on him is that he was an honest man, but he surrounded himself with criminals.
Right.
He says, I don't want that for myself.
Mm-hmm.
The Attorney General is here. Everyone in this room will be investigated for corruption. Because I am not corrupt, and I do not want my legacy to be that I was surrounded by corruption. Whoa. Right? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I've wondered at times whether as soon as somebody becomes president, they should just set up a commission to investigate them. Apparently in places in Eastern Europe and stuff, they have all these anti-corruption committees.
Yeah.
Why don't we have anti-corruption committees? Why don't we have somebody that's their job to make sure that there's nothing untoward going on with
right, and he has to live 1,000 miles from the Capitol and have no friends in public office.
Right.
You can't go to any parties.
Exactly.
You can't,
that's the big problem.
Yeah.
When people go into
weekend,
DC,
you're not going to Pedo Island.
People get captured. They go into DC, and apparently, in order to get anything done in DC, you've got to go to all the parties, and you've got to rub elbows with all these people. Yes, and you get captured, and that's got to stop.
That's right. Yeah.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we have all the senators and congressmen live in their own districts and meet by Zoom?
At this point, why? Why do they need to have a house?
Why do they have to be in DC at all?
You need to be where your people are so that they can come and you can meet with them directly.
Right, and have your parties in your own district, not in
Zoom parties,
not in swampland. Literally swampland.
Yes. All right. So what did we do here? All right, so we covered the VP. We brought up some questions about Sleepy Joe, and we have celebrated Nayib Bukele and his anti-high ropes.
Go. Thanks so much for listening to Beer and Conversation with Pigweed and Crowhill. Remember to visit us at pigweedandcrowhill.com or send us an email at pigweedshow@gmail.com.